Bishop is going to be in Jackson, Mississippi for Moral Mondays. And Bishop, there's a lot we've been talking about. Obviously, what's happening in Texas, California, redistricting, voting, everything. But this is the thing that, and I was just talking about when President Obama, he addressed the Texas House Democrats. And what I said is, listen, you can try to fight to break the quorum, but if you do not organize the state, if you don't mobilize the state, you can't win. News conference is not going to do it. Just sitting down and having Zooms is not going to do it. It literally has to be, if we talk about hand-to-hand combat, this has to be person by person, house by house, street by street, block by block, precinct by precinct, neighborhood by neighborhood, city by city, state by state.
Exactly, Roland. Can you hear me well, Roland? Exactly.
Yep, I got you, Bishop. Go ahead.
And in Texas, as in Georgia, as in Florida, and as in North Carolina, as is in Mississippi, the numbers are in our favor if we go to the right places. The bottom line is, if you look at poor and low-wage voters in Texas, whether you look at black, or just black, or black and brown and white, who have voted more progressive when they voted, this number in Texas is something like 3% is all you need to overcome the past margins of the votes. So it's not that they have so much power, it's that we're not bringing all our power to the state. If every progressive leader that's running in a House district committed to increase the number of turnouts in their district 10%, even though they may not have competition, even though they may be in a black stacked or a brown stacked district. If we start thinking like that and organizing this, then these are Georgia and Virginia are the only states that can turn. North Carolina, and I said it here first. North Carolina is going to take that Senate seat, and it's going to turn, and it can turn by margins. I looked the other day in Mississippi. In Mississippi, Presley lost the governor's race by 23,000 votes. Over 500,000 black and brown, poor and low-wage voters did not vote. But the main thing is they weren't really fought for or reached for. And so this is why we have this hand-to-hand or precinct-to-precinct combat. And what's going on in Texas, I would encourage them, you and I have been talking, number one, don't just go back and make them have to arrest you. I think all of them ought to get wheelchairs and sit in it and say that the Texas legislature is trying to cripple democracy and cripple Texas. Make them arrest you in those wheelchairs. Filed under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The people in Texas ought to be filed under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And when they're going to get read, wherever it's going to be staged, tell the people so all the people can meet you there. And when they meet you there, have a plan for what they're to do when they go back to the various counties. Tell them what the numbers are. Educate the people to the fact that we have the power. It's been fixed now that the Southern strategy does not have these big margins anymore. They are overcomable margins. Texas should fall. Florida should fall. Louisiana can fall. North Carolina can fall. Virginia can fall. Georgia can fall. And Florida can fall. If four of those states that I just named fall to an overpowering vote, it changes everything politically, Roland. Everything.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's going to take some work. And guess what? You may not do it in one cycle. You may not do it in two cycles, but you have to stay at it. And I think that excuses are not going to cut it. And the bottom line is it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of money. And I said it point blank. I said, listen, in Texas, I think President Barack Obama needs to go to Texas or he needs to say, I'm going to raise $10 million and we are going to win critical state houses to break the supermajority in Texas. We want to do the same thing in Florida. Republicans, it barely was broken in North Carolina. And that's what you have to do. You have to look at the data and say, what are the seats that we can pick up? What can we win? So you may not be able to win the House, but if you break the supermajority, that's a step to winning the House or the Senate.
That's right. And you've got to get a consultant that won't just use the old language, the old way, the old game. They're lazy. They don't want to go after these infrequent voters. They don't know how to talk. The other thing is Democrats cannot merely run saying we're against Trump. They have to say, okay, this is what he did in the first 100 days. Put me in the Congress. Give us a majority. This is what we'll do in the first 25 days or the first 50 days. You know, Democrats had a chance in 2020. And you told them, you said, do not just pass the COVID relief bill. I remember when you said it. We said it. You said pass voting rights, restore the Voting Rights Act, and the COVID relief. Do it all at one time. Don't give Manchin what he wants before he commits to what he promised John Lewis before he died. What happened? Democrats capitulated. They some of them black, went after the voting COVID relief and said Manchin had promised them afterwards he would vote a certain way. As soon as he got what he wanted, he reneged. This is not gaming anymore. This is authoritarianism on steroids. An expert on authoritarianism, Roland, told me the other day that the thing she fears the most is that this thing is moving at the speed of a military coup d'etat. And now that Trump has brought the military in to shut down cities, it's looking more and more like a military coup d'etat. And the politics we engage this year and next year are going to be determinative of whether you slow it down and stop it. We have so much power. That's why we're going to Mall Monday again in Memphis, and we're taking caskets to the senators' offices in the South who voted to basically commit policy violence, kill their own people by taking away Medicaid and creating policy murder. But what we're also doing, Roland, is organizing the pain. We're not going to let this lead to headlines. We're going to tell folk the truth. And then if you take 16 million people's health care, that's 16 million people we ought to be mobilizing to vote. If you take 20 million people off of SNAP, that pain will enable them to be organized by folk that will say, if you elect me, I will get those things back immediately with a majority. We can organize this pain, black pain, white pain, brown pain, native pain, but it's hard work. You know, Roland, I wouldn't be going down that. We were invited in Mississippi, and they said they want to fight. You got to go where it is, but you got to do more than just a speech. You got to organize, and you have to know these numbers and stop telling our people that, well, the South, you can't do anything. Well, white people vote against their own self, and well, some of them do. But the numbers tell us that we haven't even gotten 50% of our black people to vote yet. So let's start talking about how we can get 70% of black people to vote, get 20% of all poor and low-wage people who haven't voted to vote, and let's see what that does, because that will fundamentally shift the numbers in these states.
And I said it before we went to the break. I said, listen, I knew when I expressed my passionate position yesterday, I knew so it was going to be some Texas House Dems upset by that. It was going to be some Texas Black Caucus members upset by that, but that ain't my problem. And if they are mad, my whole deal is deal with it. If they are mad, then guess what? Use everything in your power. Don't show up for the quorum. If they are mad, mobilize and organize. But the bottom line is this here. I am concerned as a 56-year-old black man who's 57 in November, who has 9 nieces, 4 nephews. I got my nephew just had a baby. My niece has a baby on the way. I am concerned that my nieces and nephews and their children are going to lose power in a state where lots of blood, sweat, and tears were put in to improve the plight of African Americans. So I ain't never going to apologize for my passion and demanding folk use every ounce of their being to change this situation.
We don't need another August 19th, like we have a Juneteenth roller, where 2 years down the road, folks say, well, they should have on August 19th gotten arrested, and they didn't, and 2 years later people figured out that they could have done it, they should have done it. We don't need any more of that. Messaging, winning the messaging battle isn't the battle. You have to mobilize the message. And why would you not force Abbott to arrest you and then take Abbott to court, tie it up in court, sue in court, and then use that to mobilize the people? I believe if those Texas Democrats stood their ground and said, listen, we're literally going to say, if you're going to get us, you got to come get us, and we're going to be in wheelchairs because you're crippling this democracy. You're crippling America. And if they announced where they would be, I think tens of thousands, 100,000, I think they could put 200,000 people
I agree.
in Texas and then tell them, but if they quit, people that were going to fight are going to say, see there, see, and you. This
I'll tell you, Bishop. I'll tell you, Bishop.
Yeah.
Bishop, I was on the plane, I was reading Martin Depp's book on Operation Breadbasket. April of 1969, 1 year after the assassination of Dr. King, the Speaker of the House of Illinois, Ogilvy, was proposing a bill to cut $125 million in welfare funds. Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. in Operation Breadbasket, they mobilized 4,000 people outside the state capitol in Springfield. They put so much pressure on him that he withdrew the bill. There was one state lawmaker said he had never seen in his career where a Speaker of the House got so much pressure that he withdrew his own bill. That's what happens when you, again, give the people something to fight for, and they're gonna stand there. And this is all I'm trying to say. And listen, I'm gonna call Representative Gene Wu. I'm gonna talk to him about their strategy. But I need them to understand that in this moment, Bishop, and you see this all the time, when people feel downtrodden, beaten down, left out, they need somebody to give them hope. They need something to fight for. But when you raise the expectations, and then all of a sudden you lower them, then folk go, well, what the hell are we doing? Well, why did I go to the commission and testify? Why did I do all of that if all you was gonna do is sit out for 2 weeks? That's my central critique.
You never start a sit-in and quit. They started in December of 1955 and went 381 days. In North Carolina, when we started Moral Monday, we went over 20 weeks, Roland. And folk were arrested, but thousands of people showed up, and they mobilized. In 2014, we had 100,000 people show up at the General Assembly. And that year, when the elections came, we threw out the governor, who was an extremist like Trump, and was one of the only states where an incumbent Tea Partier was sent home, a House member from Western North Carolina, when black and white folk up in Western North Carolina found themselves a way to come together during Moral Monday. Once you commit to an act of civil disobedience, you have to stay with it. Otherwise, you mess up the courage of the people who are with you, and you embolden the people who are against you. You know, if you could, like Jesus said, if you're going to set your face like flint, you got to go all the way. And you know what, Roland? I want to say this in love. We cannot be the generation that does more with less with more than folk before us who did more with less. Now, I know we might be facing arrest, but look, Texas, think about Texas. There were people who stood up in Texas in the 1800s and the early 1900s who faced being lynched. Not just merely getting arrested, and going home. They faced being lynched. And every seat in Texas, every black seat in the South is dipped in blood. I'm going to Mississippi Black Caucus on Monday to talk to them. And I'm going to remind folks, every seat here is dipped in blood. There's no way in the world that we can be more afraid than folk were 70, 80, 100 years ago when they faced more dangers then. Come on, y'all. And we have more ways to get people together. You got this show that reaches hundreds of thousands of people. You got all this social media. I mean, we come from people who didn't even have any of this and did more. As you said, so the time is right now. Please do not disappoint the people. And there's some things that if you keep saying something is bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible, it's the worst thing ever, and then you capitulate to the extremists, and you go in when you ought to stay out. You give them their majority when you ought to not give them their quorum. My God, what that does to people is it says, you know what? This is nothing but a game. Folk, and they don't turn on your adversary, they turn on you. That's the thing about it. When you disappoint people and you call them to courage and then they don't see it, they don't turn on the people who you gave into. They turn on you. And the way they turn on you, you get 40% of the people voting. You get 50% of the people voting and 50%, 60% of the people staying home. And with those kind of numbers, you're never going to overcome this extremism and authoritarianism that we see today.
To my panel, I need quick questions for Bishop Barber. Cameron, I'll start with you.
Bishop Barber, you said you're headed down to Mississippi. I think that Senate race with Senator Sidney Highsmith, probably one of the most racist senators we have. Do you feel like that's a winnable race next year?
The numbers say it is. The numbers say that it is. I was just sharing with Roland the other day that if you look at poor and low wage voters, about 600,000 or more in the state, over 400,000, nearly 500,000 didn't vote. In the gubernatorial race, the margin of victory was only 23,000 votes. The margin of victory in the last Senate race is smaller, way smaller than the number of poor and low wage voters. If Dems put money in there, if they put people on the ground in there, you remember the former Secretary of Agriculture? He almost won down there out of Mississippi, but he asked for resources and got none. He asked for help and got none, and he forced that race. I mean, he won in places they didn't think. Mississippi is one of the key people. They got 56 black members of the caucus down there. There's only 120 some members of the whole state legislature. They have over 56 in Mississippi, of all places. If every black Democrat runs in their district like they have competition, increases the turnout by 10 to 12%, if they mobilize with poor and low wage white folk and black folk, 68% of white Republicans said they now want Medicaid expansion after COVID. And many of them down there, you don't have to get 50%. If you can get 25% of poor and low wage voters, particularly white voters that may have either not voted or voted in another way to vote their agenda, vote their pain. This is winnable, but it's not winnable if you keep saying it's not and you don't invest any money in it and you just write it off. The Dems have written the South off too long, and we've got to stop it. They have to stop it and start truly investing in organizing the South.
Thank you.
Michael?
Reverend William Barber, when you talk to poor and low wealth people who haven't voted in a number of years, what are some of the key hot button issues that resonate with them that get them to realize, okay, I need to vote because this impacts my life?
Well, first thing, we should know this. Poor and low wage people make $50,000 and less in a family of four. For the first time in modern history, voted for a Republican candidate over 50%. They voted 51% for Trump. Prior to that, wow, they were voting for Democrats in the majority, and it started going down after from Obama on forward. Now, here's why it went down. They said 19 million poor and low wage voters that voted for Biden and Kamala when he was running didn't vote. Not that they voted for someone else, they just didn't vote. Okay, Cecilia Lake just did a study on it. The top reason that they didn't vote is they said they didn't hear a clear economic agenda when it came to low wage, raising the minimum wage to a living wage, and Medicaid expansion. That was a top issue, two issues. That if they had heard that clearly, they said the problem is all they heard coming from the Democrats was middle class. Right. Middle class. So Democrats lost 19 million voters. And the number one reason they did not vote in this past election was because they did not hear a clear economic agenda for poor and low wage working people. And the second reason, the number one reason they say they don't vote, according to the study we did, is they said nobody talks to them. They don't campaign in the communities. They don't come to the communities. They don't say the word poor. They don't say the word low wages. That's what's happening. If you are running for political office, people need to hear at least their name and their situation and their condition. But if you just run, and we were told finally, Pete Buttigieg said he would probably get in trouble for saying it. I got it on camera. I'm going to get it to Roland so y'all can play it. He said, Reverend Barber, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but I'm going to say it tonight. The consultants tell us not to use the word poor and low wages. They tell us that.
Oh, yeah, you got to get that to me.
Say that. That's crazy as hell. Excuse my French, but that's crazy. When you got 140 million poor and low wage people in this country, 87 million poor and low wage voters, only 57 million of them voting, 30 million staying home, and more people voters stayed home than voted in this past election, and you're not even going to say the word poor and low wage.
Right.
That is a recipe for losing every time.
Yes.
Matt?
Thank you. Thank you.
A very quick follow-up question for you, Dr. Barber.
Matt?
In that respect,
Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear?
Go ahead.
Okay, Dr. Barber, how do you?
Yep, we got you. Go ahead.
Change the culture of the people? How do you change the culture of the people in places like where I am, Texas, poor and low-wage people who are going to repudiate, anything that's not the Republican label, even though they would be voting for their interest if they were voting for Medicaid and some of the other programs. I mean, that's what I see as a big issue here, is that people don't want to be aligned with a certain party, and therefore they may not vote, even though it's against their interest. How do you change that culture through the messaging?
Yeah, okay. Well, remember what I just said in the stats. Now, I know what we tend to say as a matter of saying it, but I look at stats. And let me tell you this, Roland, my wife taught me something the other day that I'm going to say to y'all that's got to become a political reality. I used to be really, really, really big. Steroids and stuff blew me up. And I lost a lot of weight, but I kept going to the store in the same size. For some reason, I couldn't get my mind past 60. I had been way up, about 70. I couldn't get my mind. The other day, we went in the store, and I went over there. She said, "Don't you go over there another time." She said, "You are not that big anymore." I said, "Yes, because you bring your pretty skinny ass over here." Excuse me. But she said, "You come over here and try on this 52. I can't wear no 52, baby. She said, "Okay, they got a me fitting in there. Go in there. It's going to tell you the size of your elbow, your arm, your neck, your eyes, everything." And they do. And it said 52.7. Now, my point I'm trying to make to my brother is I hear that all the time. But the data says that last year was the first time that poor and low-wage people voted over 50% for a Republican. So that means that 50% of them ain't voting against their own interests. It means and that means large amounts of them just aren't voting. Why? Because they're not being talked to. So you can't live in a non-statistical reality. The reality is that the majority of poor and low-wage people making under $50,000 a year, when Biden and Harris run, did not vote against their self-interest. That only what 40% of them. But the majority didn't. But the larger issue is so many of them stayed home, and they said, not we said, whether it's black or white, whether it's Appalachia or the Delta, whether it's the Panhandle or it's the city, nobody comes and talks to us about the issues that are really, really real. How much time? Do I have one more minute, Roland? I just want to tell a story real quick. 1 minute.
Yep, Bishop, go ahead. Go ahead.
We went to East Kentucky, my brother. They told me if you go to East Kentucky, they're going to shoot you. I said, no. They said East Kentucky is Republican. I said, no, it isn't. It's Ann Braden country. She was a white woman that fought for civil rights in Kentucky. I said, it's coal mining company where black and white people fought against the Union. And they came up with the song, which side are you on? Which side are you on? That Black Lives Matter you. People didn't even know that history. I said, it is the country of the great dissenter, who was the only person to dissent in Plessy versus Ferguson. We went there and met with some folk, and we showed them how the state legislature under Republican leadership was voting against their water rights, their pensions, turning the coal companies over to foreign nations, not passing blocking Medicaid, how many people that hurt up there in Appalachia and in those mountains, so forth and so on. And we showed them how they lie to them. And when they come to them, all they do is talk about gay people and abortion, but they don't tell them the rest of the story. We showed them the rest of the story, put charts up on the walls, showed them how their legislators voted. And one guy got up. He was a McCoy, the Hatfields and the McCoy. He said, "Reverend Barber, show that again." I showed it to him. He said, "Well, I will, but damn if we ain't being bamboozled." I said, "You are. Now what you gonna do about it?" They got together with black folk from Louisville and began organizing. 4 of those 6 counties voted for Andy Beshear, who's now the new Democratic governor in Kentucky, who sent an incumbent Republican home. And we never endorsed him. What we did was we went there and showed people, this is how you are being. Now, some of them, they didn't go couple of folk cussed us out while we were up there, but so what? I got cussed out before. I'm trying to get 25%. We win if 25% of poor, low-wage people that haven't voted. We might not get 75, but I can get 25% in any state, in any of the battleground states where poor people are 6% of the electorate, poor and low-wage folk. If I can win 25% of those who have not voted, it's a new day. And that's how I think, my friend, we have to start changing the culture.
Thank you.
All right, Bishop William Barber, always a pleasure. Folks, pull the graphic up. Monday, Bishop Barber will be in Jackson, Mississippi for Moral Mondays. We'll be live streaming it right here on the Black Star Network. Bishop, thanks a lot.
Bless you, man. Y'all forgive me for a little cussing, but it's good for the soul.
It's all right then. Cussing lowers your blood pressure. All right, Bishop, thanks a lot. I'm going to go to a quick break.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.